on the slide, I'm Abhinav. I'm a technology partner at ThoughtWorks. I've been in the industry for about 2 decades. On my day-to-day job, I work with a lot of technology leaders, generally director of engineering, vice presidents, and CXOs in the North American market. But I'm really, really excited to be here today and seeing, a lot of young faces. Like when I present to that audience, I think their priority is different. But I think this audience, I love the energy in the room right now. So that's what excites me. But having said that, I just want to check, is it really the audience I'm presenting to? So can we have some round of applause for the hosts who could make that? I think after pandemic, this takes probably 10 times more effort to create an in-person event, and really kudos to all the hosts. And thank you for the applause. Okay, so in this session, strategy generally is for very senior people, like top-notch people in your respective companies, people you don't generally meet. But my objective of this session is to tell you about how you can become better technologists. I've seen many waves of technology over the last 20 years. Technology changes very rapidly. Some things come, some things go. So I want to just give you some key takeaways that you can take with you from this half-an-hour session, and which can help you become a better technologist and also help you grow in your respective career choices. Okay, so I'll just start by saying, the world is hybrid, and I think it's a no-brainer these days. For a lot of you, I think many of you must be working in companies which are remote first. I work at ThoughtWorks. We have remote first culture. I was talking to one of the volunteers who works in ThoughtWorks, and she was telling me, she can't remember coming to office at 8:30 for a long time. So, but yeah, the vibes that you get in person is something different, which you otherwise don't get on Zoom or Google. So, just be aware, the world is hybrid, and there is this, very famous saying by this gentleman called Melvin Conroy. It's typically known as Conroy's law. Can I see a raise of hands who knows about Conroy's law? Okay, perfect. I have the right audience. This is something which is very much there in the list of senior leaders in your companies. This is how they structure the organizations. Engineering teams, support teams, the DevOps team. This is some of the things which is, this is one of the law which govern that. And I just want to take it, one step further to say that multi-cloud is another, manifestation of this hybridness. So a lot of you might have heard about this term multi-cloud, but I just want to demystify, and probably in ThoughtWorks we see it in a certain way. I just want to share our thinking, and hopefully you will resonate. So it generally starts with monocloud. Like any enterprise which wants to go to the cloud, they pick up one cloud of their choice, mostly public cloud, AWS, GCP, Azure, whatever it is. It generally suddenly starts going towards hybrid. So organizations have data centers. That's where the things work, and they get a taste of cloud, and now they want to connect. The database probably might be residing in your data center. Maybe some critical API which you don't want to explore or expose outside. You want to keep it in data center. That's what we call it as hybrid cloud, where you're connecting premise with something on public end. There's another element to it, and by the way, all of this fall in multi-cloud, which we call it as poly-cloud. So these days, what's happening is a lot of niche offerings are coming from technology or cloud vendors specifically. So, for example, Google is very proud to have some of the great data offerings. Spanner DB. It's like Google's network presence across the world is almost unmatched. However, you have similar offerings from Azure, like IoT offerings. So Azure probably say we have the best IoT offerings. So enterprises start going in, poly-cloud. Like, let's take data from GCP, let's take IoT from Azure. That's what we call as a poly-cloud. It suddenly, starts shifting, and people also start saying, hey, what if we're running something on GCP? What if GCP data center goes down or region goes down? can we fall over to Azure? Or vice versa. I'm just taking two examples, no pointing to that GCP goes down, but just calling it out. And that's what we call portable cloud. Can you run the same workload across two clouds, and public clouds, private clouds, and other offerings as well. And then we also have distributed cloud. A lot of the best of the breed companies, they can easily mix their private data centers, multiple public clouds, also edge offerings, like factory floors and all of that. They're also connected to the public cloud. So that's what we call as a distributed cloud, which is like the most complex of all. But for this talk, you can imagine whenever I say multi-cloud, this means all of that. And I think it's very important to know these different definitions, because this will impact you as well when you make some tiny technology choices. And I'll talk about it. Just be aware, although I introduce all these terms, the complexity generally increases as you go above. While it's very easy to start with a data center or mono cloud, but if you try to jump to the distributed cloud too soon, your organizations may not be ready for it, or you yourself may not be ready for it. So this is the first learning that I want you to take away, is that when you're trying to mature or adopt your enterprises, or your role as a developer, DevOps, whatever it is, don't try to jump, because your ecosystem may not be ready for that jump too soon. Some industry statistics, just to ensure that you realize it's not just Thoughtworks talking about it, like the whole industry is also talking about it. And I'll go slightly fast here, not diving too much. 81% of enterprise organizations are using public clouds or one or more private cloud deployments. So it's not future, it's probably past, and you're already here. 89% of enterprises have a multi-cloud strategy. So you may be working on one cloud today, but be aware in your enterprise, there will be people who are working on other clouds as well. Third, again, just two or more providers. It's like people want to hedge, and I'll come about why they want to adopt. Google is great, Azure is great, AWS is great. It's not about comparing them, but it's about some other criteria why people pick multiple clouds. So I talked about what are the drivers. So one of the key drivers I talked about is best of the breed services. I talked about Google's massive presence across the globe, their network, latency, edge network. Enterprises want to pick the best of the breed. They don't want to say, hey, let's partner with Google. But if something great comes out from other vendors, organizations want to go there as well. So they don't want to miss out, and that's the way. It should be ideal. So this is one of the very big drivers behind why organizations go for multi-cloud. Second is managing vendor lock-in. I think we have been there, done that multiple times so far. Anytime you try to lock into a one vendor, the relationship doesn't last long. Marriage is the only place where probably it lasts longer. Rest everywhere, I think you want choices. Not with marriage, hopefully. That's the second one, key one. The third one is business continuity. Any cloud provider you go, you generally have 3 nines of availability, 4 nines of availability. But the moment you try to go for slightly more numbers, 5 nines, 6 nines, the cloud vendor will probably not support you. Ask about, can you have a workload running on GCP, which is 6/9 available. Google may give you some target architecture patterns, but you will very soon realize it's not working out. And the very simple reason is, physics. Google relies on a data center which they manage. Disaster do happen. So that's one of the reasons why you want to hedge. Microsoft has a different facility, a data center. Cloud is nothing but a data center, right, which Microsoft manages. So if you hedge across such massive public cloud vendors, your availability suddenly starts going in territory which is otherwise not possible. That's another one of the key reasons for most of the advanced enterprises in the world who are looking for 5 nines, 6 nines. That's one of the key reasons for them to go to this multi-cloud. And last but not the least, some geopolitical dynamics as well. I just want to talk about it, if you're in certain regions of the globe, certain public cloud vendors may not be available. So you have to play by that geographies thing. I don't want to name any country, but there are countries which don't allow some of the vendors to operate. So for that also, you don't want to be shielded. If you're running a business, you want to tap into those markets. So and hence that's you will be required to go to some other vendors which play in that job. So yeah, these are some of the key ones. Just want to take a pause. I know it's short on time, but anyone else has seen any other reason that you want to talk about? Very quickly, maybe I'll just go for 5 seconds. Okay, I again have the right audience. All right, so challenges. Like I'm talking about, everybody is going there, but it's not seamless. It's not like everybody just goes there, adopts, and everything works out. Let's look some of the challenges, and you will, and there are many of them right now. Although I shared you those statistics, 80%, 81, 84, whatever. We are just beginning on this journey. So whatever I'm talking about will take shape in next 5 years, 10 years. And if you become ready, it will help you, obviously, because you're ahead of the curve. Now, what are some of the challenges? Okay. Cross-platform infra service provisioning. So let's suppose you're on, I don't know, AWS for that matter. You learn, AWS advertises cloud formation is the way to go. You learned it, mastered it, and you realize, your company said, hey, now we want to work on Azure. Like your whole hard work, learning, mastering cloud formation suddenly got a hit. Now you have to learn ARM templates or, another Google technology. So this is one of the core problems, the workforce, basically you have to be ready for it, which is not easy. It's not easy to learn all the 3 provisioning technologies. Second, security. Like you have to now manage policies across different clouds. There is no central way of managing those policies. Application portability. You write something for, Spanner DB or Microsoft. I'm just thinking about what logic apps, for example. And you realize suddenly you don't have logic apps on Google. Now what do you do? Next thing. And this is not everything that I'm talking about is super hard. Writing logic apps is Microsoft say easy, but it's not that easy. You have to master it. It takes weeks, months of effort. But you don't want to be stuck with just knowing logic apps. Data application. Data has been a very hard problem. I hope you're not accountable for cost and billing, but the moment you start moving data in and out of cloud, your cost will start to go up and up. So if you replicate massively across 2 public clouds, the cost will go over the roof. That's a given. And nobody can help because you're moving bits. Right? Moving bits takes energy, and hence you have to pay. Network topologies. So here, so imagine you have in your data center. It's so easy, right? Define subnets, deploy things, work. You go to public cloud, you do some hybrid connection, express out or whatever in different vendors, it works. Now, how do you manage across public clouds? Public clouds do not play with each other. They don't allow you to build one global network. Maybe Google allows one other rare ones, but generally they don't. People not allow. So how do you work with those network restrictions? Skill, I think I already touched upon it. Like you are the people who make it happen, not the decision makers at the top. So how do you manage so many things happening? Even in single cloud, it's difficult. And I'm talking about multiple clouds. How does that happen? And last but not the least, cost is always a concern. And enterprises just don't print money. So how do you manage multiple clouds while remaining cost effective? So yeah, so these are some of the challenges. I'm sure there are more, but I'm just limiting to these major ones. And now, when you are going through this journey, right? I want to help you. How do you deconstruct these complexities? I'm just giving challenges. At ThoughtWorks, we face this day in and day out. We have come up with some framework to kind of help organizations go through this journey. And I'm talking at Google Cloud conference. GDG. Thanks to you. I do want to take this moment to kind of tell you that Google's is one of the most forward-looking cloud service provider. And I say forward-looking, they are going in this kind of era in a cloud-neutral way. And I think Google has these offerings you may not know. It's called GDC, which is Google Distributed Cloud. They launched it, I think, a few months back. We've been talking about this for, I think, a couple of years, but it was great to see, while we're talking about it, Google is working behind it. So again, AWS also has an offering called Outpost. I feel they're slightly behind. Azure also has it, Azure Arc, which is also their way of going to it. But I think Google is taking it in a most open fashion. They're not kind of differentiating between their cloud versus others. So yeah, so Google, if you are vested into some of these Google toolset, you've already taken the first step further. Yeah, let's talk about again. So I told you about the business direction. I told you about the challenges. Now I'll talk about what is ThoughtWorks' opinion. Like how can you, take this some big wave coming. So we call it a 3 tenets framework. So the first tenet, and it's not step, it's tenet. So basically, you should be able to do all in parallel. We call it evaluate your workload. Whatever you want to run, it could be compute, it could be data, it could be edge, IoT, whatever it is. And I'll tell you what I really mean by this. You have to really think about what is your scenario. Why are you building what you are building? That's the first and very important tenet. Second is defining the operating model. And while every technology is very shiny, it excites us. That's why you are on here on a Sunday morning. Otherwise, I think young people on Sunday morning to outside their home. But defining people's capability, processes, and some technology patterns or templates is another very important step. You just can't go, on any direction, new launches and adopt it. It's a kind of a recipe for failure. And third, and another most important is how do you govern? How do you do observability, monitoring, telemetry? How do you even enforce? Security I talked about. You're dealing with multiple clouds. What if a hack happens on one of the clouds? How do you recover from it? So that's the third tenet of this framework. Let's go. I'll touch upon it and happy to talk offline. I got 30 minutes, so I have to stick to that time. So the first one, again, assessing the workload. So let's suppose you're going towards portable cloud. You want to run something on one cloud, for example, GCP, and you feel like you require it to run on another cloud. So your architecture has to be compatible. You have to invest in architectures which are cloud agnostic. You cannot go with, Azure functions, because Azure function won't run on GCP. You have to invest in technology. For example, Kubernetes. Kubernetes is available across cloud with some variations. I'm not saying Kubernetes is equivalent, but it varies also. Or something you feel that you want to do something only in one cloud. That's where you can go with cloud specialized architecture. All the latest and greatest. Google, GCP cloud. I think what is it called? Cloud functions, Cloud Run. Sorry. GCP Cloud Run, Azure functions, all the serverless, SaaS offerings. That's the way you can do. But how do you decide, which architecture to pick when? And this is where we have this framework. Again, this is done by your your leaders, your head of engineering and all. But I think it will be good if you are also aware about it, because you can also influence those decisions. So let's suppose you have business criticality here, how business critical a feature or a capability is. And here is the architecture style. So I'll give you some examples. Talk about network operations. It's very core to a business. If your network operation fails, all the other things will not fall in place. And that's where what I recommend, if you're going for network operations, stay cloud agnostic, because you don't want to build it on something which might expire. Things, by the way, cloud launches also happen and they retire also. Sometimes it's obsolete, they're retiring it, but you don't want to be stuck in that fast cycle when it comes to critical operations like network. Let's take the other extreme side. Let's suppose you're launching a promotional website, and a website which will last for 1 month, 1 quarter, maybe 6 months, right? But it's very point in time. It will not remain for years and years. I think that's the place where you can go for this specialized architecture. Use serverless. Use all the SaaS offerings, launch it very quickly. Even if SaaS changes, we're not impacted because it's not that critical for business. It's tactical. So if I can say for tactical things, please do go for cloud specialized. I think it's great. All these niche offerings which come really help going faster time to market. And everything in between, like if you have some bigger platform, you can slice and dice also. It's not that you have to always be on this side or that side. There are a few more elements of it, like flexibility. That's another guiding factor, and another one is the effort. How much capability you have, how much time you have, how much what are your timelines. So these are some of the factors I think which can help you make this decision of when to go for cloud neutral versus cloud specialized architectures. Second is the defining the operating model, important tenet. And when you're starting, I really suggest you to start with people. Again, you may not have that much influence, but I think if you're talking to your leaders, please tell them that I think it's people which matters. Any architecture style won't take you far if you don't have people alignment on it. So what do you know? Like if you know GCP and if your enterprise is trying to go to Azure, tell them that we will not be able to execute. And hence it's important, and that's why it's the first element that people's skill, what they already know, what they want to know is central to such a strategy. Second is process, like how do you govern it? Not governing is probably not the right way. KPIs, like how do you sense what's running in your production system? Getting those, insights on whatever telemetry or monitoring or observability framework, data logs and all of that. What are those tool sets? I think that should be very strengthened because logging onto a server, looking at the logs won't help you. Because it won't help you even single cloud. I think in multiple clouds, you just won't have time, skills to get into so many servers at a time and see what's going on. Hence, it requires a lot of process maturity and governance. And last but not the least, requires technology. Some frameworks about I talked about Kubernetes. That could be your compute layer where you're building everything. For cloud specialized things, build frameworks. For example, you want to run something serverless, GCP is your choice. So Cloud Runner. Those are technologies which you will invest. You will not look at others. So build some guidelines. You should not go back to the drawing board every time thinking about whether we should pick GCP or Azure. It just wastes time. Think about it, decide it, and then just an example. I think I talked about Kubernetes a bit. There are many technologies today which allow you to manage across multiple Kubernetes cluster centrally. Again, Kubernetes is sufficient. When you have one cluster, you can easily do it. And I'm looking forward to some of the amazing sessions which are coming up. But what do you do when you have multiple Kubernetes clusters? And multiple Kubernetes clusters deployed across different clouds in different places. Here are some of the technologies. I've listed few. There are more, but like Kubler, Rancher, and Thos. These are some of the tools which you can use to govern your Kubernetes multiple clusters confidently. So this could be one architecture pattern that every compute, whatever you're building, stays on Kubernetes, and these are a tool set which you can use to govern those complex clusters. Last but not the least, let's look at govern. I think I talked about a little bit, but I just touched getting real-time insights from whatever is running on your production systems. I think that's very, very important because things happen very fast. You won't be surprised if you set up any cloud VM instance and just leave it for 8 minutes, it will get hacked. That's the era we are in because people don't hack. Today's machines are in search of a public machine which they can, utilize or probably, use it for some other purposes that you intend it for. So having those insights, automated insights, is very, very important. Second, I think governance with fitness functions. You may have worked with fitness functions, you may not, but please make it a point to read about fitness functions. This is something what helps about keeping your architecture intact. If you don't want to start with very ideal picture, and as the time moves by, your architecture drifts. You talked about grid pattern, observability pattern, and this and that, and Business just say build this feature, build that feature, put this patch, fix this bug, and your architecture drifts. Observability pattern was on day one. Now it's like whatever works. Somehow code works. But fitness function is what something can prevent that to happen and give you those insights so that you tell your business that hey, architecture is falling apart. Let's pause down, take some time. Shifting left a lot of practices. Like quality, we talked about quality is must, but quality cannot be added as a post-facto thing. So writing unit test cases, all of that upfront becomes more and more important. These are basic practices, helps in this era as well. Security, I think I was looking at a few people. Security, you can't plug and play at the end. If you're at the end, you already missed the boat. Some of those practices have to be pre-poned. I think you have to take it in the room. Your CI/CD pipelines, security scans needs to happen more often and earlier in the cycle. They just can't happen towards them. And again, this is like one unified experience. Like when you're dealing with multiple clouds, the public cloud vendors may not help that much. Azure dashboard will show you Azure resources. Google dashboard will show you Google resources. You need something more, something which can show you resources across different clouds. And that's where GDG. So I thought of mentioning, and Thos is one of the good ones, which allows you all these things as a layer. Cluster management, lifecycle, configuration, policy, service, operation, security. You need not bother about these things at individual cloud levels. And Thos can help you manage this across cloud centrally. So you're saving time. You are being more confident because you can govern all these things centrally from one location. And that's where I said Google is slightly forward thinking on this than other offerings from. And there are other as well. I'm not saying it's only one, but this is one of the forward looking. Cool. So I think I'm looking at the time ticker, about to come to an end. I do intend to take questions, but probably after the time we can catch up. Some of the takeaways for you, I promised I want to stick to my promise that I made early on. Multi-cloud is important. It's inevitable. It is here. You believe it or not, you are in the midst of that already. One takeaway that you have to do is be pragmatic about it. You don't want to jump too much ahead without being prepared. If you have not worked on your, the framework that I gave you, this jump will be painful. Like if you are deploying resources across two clouds, you get hacked, it will be very difficult to recover. Imagine working workload across Google and Azure or Microsoft, and if you get hacked, you can't go to Google and say, I don't know, the other server on Microsoft cluster got hacked. If you go to Microsoft, they'll say, hey, hold on, the server which was on Google that got hacked. So contractually, you won't be protected. And it will be a mess, So you really need that governance there, and it's difficult. You can't look at logs to figure out which server got which, IP access. It's like too difficult in cloud, and hence be pragmatic about it. Some of the other ones, I think, to be future ready, embrace hybridness. Many people say cloud is the computer of the world, right? It is a computer of the world. But you have a computer of the world in your hand right now. Your mobile phone is getting way more stronger and faster than it ever has. So compute will always be hybrid. No matter how great a public cloud is, you have a computer or a supercomputer of a decade back in your hand right now. Your compute will always run in a hybrid fashion. It's not gonna change. So you need to embrace that today. Second, focus on some cross-cloud skill fungibility. What I mean by this skill fungibility, by the way, 12F is called as 12-factor app. How many people know about this? Okay, some of the slightly senior techies in the room. Okay, these 12-factor app is nothing but some of the patterns that you have to know when you're developing an application. If you learn these, they will come handy irrespective of which cloud you're using. You will be better developer if you learn about master these apps. We used to call it design pattern back in the days, some things, but I think if you are thinking about design patterns today, 12-factor app is something which and you can Google it, and like I don't have a link, but it's very much evident. Third, learn some cloud agnostic stacks. It's great to learn cloud specific, that's how you should start, but make it a point to learn some things cloud agnostic as well. For example, Kubernetes, Terraform, I know it's Google's conference, but still, I think Terraform is supported by all. I mean, there are others as well. Pulumi is one. If you make investments in these tools, you will be ready more for future. Last but not the least, governance. I know it's developer audience. Governance is not any of your top priority, but if you learn these slightly forward-looking launches, it will make you as a better technologist. You'll be ready to become an architect or from there on. Just be aware of this fact, and if you get a chance, at least if not master, at least be aware about it. Yeah, but that's it. I think what you have to realize, and thank you for coming on a Sunday morning. The most important is health. Be aware of it. Don't kill yourself going after technology. Talking from my experience, I did some crazy things, but I think take care of it. That's something which COVID has taught us. And last but not the least, I think one of the key elements of your success will be partnering with other people, like you're doing today, taking out time on a Sunday morning, partnering with people. Again, a big thanks to the organizers to conduct an in-person event after 2 years, if I'm not wrong, and make this happen. I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for doing it.